First thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Tom, you taking notes tonight? All right, you got everybody written down who's here and who's not, at least who's here. We do have a quorum tonight, so that's good. First thing on the agenda is public comments. Normally we open it up for public comments on anything that we've included on the agenda itself. Anything you guys want us to consider talking about today while we're here. So is there any public comments before we get started? Okay, great. Next thing on our agenda is the Planning Commission administrative items. I really don't have many, but just some housekeeping. I'm not going to be available for next Monday's workshop meeting, so Bob, I'm going to ask you to run the meeting for me as far as what we'll be covering. Tom, are you going to have a draft for us anytime soon on all the comments that we've had on the saldo?
We have most of those completed, so we should be able to have a draft created.
Okay.
So would you prefer we do that, or move the PRD?
If there's enough time for you guys to look at that, I'd rather get back on the saldo and try to keep that moving while it's still fresh. But if it doesn't come in enough time to really get started for the meeting, then feel free to reopen the PRD and at least get our bearings on that again so we can start moving forward, because we'll be doing that very soon. So, okay. Everybody in agreement with that plan? Great. That brings us to a review of the meeting minutes. At least our Planning Commission was provided copies of the meeting minutes from the January 27th and February 2nd meetings. One was an actual official meeting, the other one was one of our workshops. So y'all have a chance to look at let's call it the January 27th meeting minutes. Any comments? Motion to approve. Great. Do I have a second motion on that? Got a second? Okay. Meeting minutes for the 27th of January 2026 are approved. Second set of meetings was for our workshop session on Monday, February 2nd. Y'all get a chance to look over that. Is there any comments or revisions? Okay, good. Good motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second motion, okay. So motion's approved. So the meeting minutes from the February 2nd workshop are approved. So old business, moving right along. Paige Place.
Good evening again, everybody. Ed Moore with Scheffler & Company. Since the last meeting, we heard a bunch of comments at the last meeting, and since then, we've taken a look at revising the plans to address those comments. We have revised the plans and we submitted them in early February. And then later on, we received some email comments from Mr. Brennan that we also addressed, so we resubmitted plans again on February 18th to hopefully address all those comments. Just to go over some of those items that we talked about, the waiver requests have been withdrawn. We're not asking for any waivers. The dusk to dawn lamps were discussed, and those are moved to 5 feet from the right of way so they can light the sidewalk a little more. There's maximum 6 units in a row. That was discussed the last time, but that does not apply to this district. Me and Mr. Thompson had talked since then, and that maximum 6 units in a row is a different zoning district than ours, so we're okay with that. The boulevard entrance has been removed. Space for the decks, for some of the units that are a little tighter. Notes been added to the plans that show any restrictions, and also the builder is aware to mention it to their prospective homeowners of some of these conditions. The access road between the basins was discussed, and since they're infiltration basins, with the roads in between them, they're going to get compaction, and it won't infiltrate in those areas. but the basins are large enough that we've accommodated for those infiltration requirements. So the plan with the basins in between the basin, or the roads between the basins, has been approved, and we have an NPDS permit for that. So I think we're good there as well. The snow chute has been removed from the plans. Any of the conflicts with the signs and the landscaping being in the driveways and such, we've taken a look at that, and hopefully we've caught all those. The road profile on the plans has been revised. It was a typo. More detailed landscaping will be provided during the final phase. We're just at preliminary right now, so that'll be during the final phase. We've also added lighting restrictions. We've added a note to the plans for the units that back onto Route 19, so there's no headlights that can shine and distract the drivers along Route 19. And we adjusted some of the lot lines where we could in order to address, Mr. Brennan, your comments. We adjusted the lot lines in the front. Now the sidewalk is on common ground. We've pulled this lot line in a little bit here to get that basin more in the open space. We were not able to change these lot lines and to get the access basin on its own parcel because we're up against the maximum lot coverage. And the smaller the lot got, we were over the maximum lot coverage for the township requirements. So that's why that couldn't change. So that'll still be an easement across those lots. So we changed the lot lines to help accommodate some of your concerns. And with that, we're here tonight to hopefully ask for preliminary approval on the plan, and we'll answer any questions you might have.
Tom, could you go through your comments, and if he's addressed them adequately, if Scheffler, developer, addressed them, maybe just go through and check them off?
Sure. I mean, based on the revised drawings that we had and reviewed, we had 6 comments. The first, again, was the partial boulevard issue. And again, because of the restrictions of it not really having much purpose, again, that has been removed from the plan. The snow chute has been removed. The road foreman for the township would like it considered to be added. The purpose of that is if we get a significant snow event, it's someplace to push snow to as opposed to using a more direct access. So you get an 18-inch snowstorm, you know, it's somewhere you can stockpile snow. So again, it's his recommendation if we can add that back in. He would prefer to have some place to at least push snow off the roadway to incorporate that. Third item is just, again, the street names. Whenever it becomes final, we get to the point where we're ready to record the plan to be submitted to the county. The county will review the names that they provide to see if they're adequate or not, and the county will approve those names. On the stormwater plan, the safety fence, again, the ordinance allows the township to require a safety fence. They have not proposed a safety fence. We've talked about that. I don't know in this case where the safety fence is needed, but again, it's just a requirement that the supervisors have the ability to mandate that requirement. Again, the access road does travel through basin 2 and 1, but they clarified that and making it a more compact surface. So it really shouldn't be an issue, and again, it doesn't add to or subtract from the amount of infiltration area that they have for meeting the DEP requirements. And then again, I guess the common items that will be happening after plan approval, and then we get to the final plan, is obviously recording the plans, the stormwater management agreement, and those types of things. So for the most part, they've addressed the concerns that we had.
PennDOT permits okay, or they have a preliminary?
We have the traffic impact study signed off by PennDOT. To date, we have not received the actual HOP permit yet. But again, where the proposed plan is, again, that would be a requirement that they provide that, and again, it would be required during the final phase.
If we forgo a fence, I think we talked about it at the last meeting where we didn't think it was necessary based on its location and around the sediment ponds. You know, at a later date, if we get a lot of residents calling, saying there's kids down there playing, and it's the residents' concern, they're the only ones that are going to see that. Is that something that the township could require them to install at a later time? Or
they could recommend it at that point, depending on when it happens. It would either be late in development or the HOA that would be required to do so. So there would be a cost issue. The HOA may not be set up to absorb that cost, but if it's something that the residents there wanted to do it, you could certainly do it through that function.
I think that would, to me, that would be the only time when that would occur.
Right.
You know, unless we see a problem now, which we don't, because it's just very remote, there's nothing there. Nobody's gonna be down there, so.
And remember too that these are infiltration basins. They only sit with water during a rain event and shortly thereafter. So they're not wet ponds that stay wet. So I'm not a huge advocate of fences.
I'm not either, I just was just curious about that. The snowshoots, I'll ask these guys. Is that something you'll consider adding? I mean, I know you had them in, we took them out. They really didn't function the way we wanted to. I'm just gonna ask that, you know, as you move forward, if you see an opportunity to add that, it's to the benefit of the residents who are gonna be moving in there, because without it, the snow's gonna pile up. They're not gonna haul it out, so
Yeah.
it's gonna end up somewhere, and you can give them that relief up front. That's a lot better. But
Yeah, if the road master or the road person has a suggestion, if he wants to mark up a plan of where he thinks he might want something, we'd gladly add something back in.
He wanted a little bit bigger, right?
About 20 feet wide at the entrance is what he was suggesting, but again, we can really do that with the supervisors to make that recommendation during their approval process.
okay. Bob, did you have some extra comments?
I do have some comments. Number one, Ed, I appreciate you looking at some of my markup, and the intent of the markup was twofold. Primarily, get the common elements on common elements instead of easements. I've had too much experience with having to fight homeowners to step on their property to replant a tree or fix a sidewalk or anything else, even though it's in an easement. If it's on common elements instead, it's a lot easier. So it's the HOA deal with it. Likewise, the same thing down in the pond area. Getting that property line moved back out of the rim of the basin is good, because then if trees or something grow up in the basin, not yet, when trees grow up in the basin, the HOA can easily deal with those without some homeowner getting mad at them for cutting down their trees, even though they have every right to do it. So I appreciate those. I still want to talk about the south side of the property, the property line, access road, and swale. Because unless I'm missing something, even what I saw in the most recent revision, I still didn't see a swale drawn back in. I saw the access road up against a toe of slope. And I have a problem with access road against toe, and these are minor issues. This is not a show-stopping kind of discussion here. But the access road against toe of slope is problematic from the standpoint of when you've got the stormwater coming down that slope and you've got 20 feet worth of fill sitting there in place. That's a fair amount of stormwater coming down. It's gonna create for you a swale on the road and take that gravel into the pond. If under almost all circumstances, that's what's gonna occur. The water's gonna come down, it's gonna wash that road into the swale unless you've got a swale there. Kicking it away from the toe of slope would help with that, and getting a swale in between. I prefer the swale in between rather than across, because if you put the swale across or even use the existing natural swale that's there, that's going to be inadequate. The existing was going to be inadequate for the volume of water that's going to come off of that slope during the construction phase. PCSM phase, it's not going to be a big deal, but at construction phase is going to be a fair amount of water that could potentially go into a neighboring southern property.
Yeah, Bob, I can answer that. And when I'm going to update my ENS plans for the modification, I'm going to include a swale there for ENS phase only. So when that dirty water, that dirt for water is going on, it'll go into the basin. But when that vegetation grows up, and then we convert the basins from ENS to PCSM, that'll go away.
Okay.
So it'll be clean water running off that.
You're going to put that swale between the road and the toe? Okay, so you're going to kick the
Yeah, for ENS phase only. Well, it'll be.
Well, the access road will stay where it's at.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because you're right. Once it's vegetated, you don't have the volume of water that's going to wash the access road into the basin. And you want that water to be captured before the road and get the untreated water into the basin during that construction phase. So no, those are perfect comments. I'm still a little confused about why you can't move the rear property line to those lots back and have the access road primarily uncommon. The only one I saw that was mathematically an issue size-wise was that very first lot coming in on the left. You got one or two lots, beginning of the access road. The rest I thought would work.
No, they don't. It's a maximum, it's basically that. I mean, if we were allowed to differentiate from that maximum lot coverage, the lots have to be a certain size because the buildings, obviously, they didn't change. So we can't bring that in all the way to where that road is, because you know where the road's right there at the toe of the slope. We can't bring it in that far and still meet the maximum lot coverage. We would be over that requirement. It's 30%.
What do you mean maximum lot coverage? You're saying
The building itself, yes.
Percentage coverage.
Exactly, to the lot itself. So when you start to shrink that down, you're over that 30%. So that's why we can't move it all the way. We could probably move it a little bit, but not far enough to get that whole access road in there.
Okay.
So that's why.
No, I get it. Was another comment? Getting old, forgetting it. You can look at my notes, you can see. You did change the numbering of the units I saw as well.
Yes, right.
To get that disagreement to go away.
Right.
The pond itself, that was the other comment. I think your approach is reasonable, the way you're tackling that. And I am curious, what is your ratio of impervious area to pervious area using 5-to-1, 10-to-1? You have any idea, Ryan, what that was?
I don't, I can give you a number, but I think we were going off of the new, last time we spoke was the new guidelines of 10-acre max per basin. And that's what we met.
I think those new that new guideline is also 5-to-1 ratio, isn't it?
They're getting rid of that.
Are they?
It's now for
Okay.
infiltration facilities, it's 10-acre max.
But not a 5-to-1 ratio anymore.
No, they're getting rid of that. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's coming, not hopefully, in the next year or so, I think. So we're getting ahead of it. And that's what all the regulatory agencies are kind of transitioning towards, is reviewing it based off that fact.
Okay.
So,
And then your volume of pond. I see that the road still goes down into the pond, even though it's gravel across there, and that's fine. But my question is, I assume that you kept the road going down in instead of putting it on the fill side, based on a volume calculation of the pond. Did you need to hit a certain volume of the pond still?
if you're talking about like the bottom infiltration area.
No, the bottom infiltration area, I already heard you say that meets what's necessary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the question is, you still need a volume calculation on the actual basin itself. And my point is this: could you, instead of taking that access road, dipping it into the pond and back up the other side, simply filling that whole thing up so that you're running across a rim, or is that killing the volume that you need in the pond?
That would probably kill the volume.
Okay.
Because
It's not a big deal.
we're pretty close. We need it, but we're close.
Okay, it's not a big deal either way. It's just, the higher it is off the bottom,
Yeah.
the less, infiltration, not infiltration, but sedimentation and all the crap you're gonna get on that access when we cross it anyway.
Which there'll be provisions in the construction sequence and all the notes. So after a quarter-inch rainfall or something like that, they need to go in and contractor needs to clean it out or dewater it. They'll obviously probably have to rebuild some of that road during heavy rain events. But there'll be provisions in there.
So, are you doing a mod on the NPDES permit you
Since
said?
we changed the configuration of basins, yes, we have to.
Okay,
We have a permit, but now we'll just have to have a meeting with Butler.
and do a minor mod?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I recommend that when you do that minor mod, you kick the LOD to the south on that side? Your LOD looks pretty close that you really can't kick your access road or a swale without being outside the LOD, and what I was seeing on your E&S plans.
Okay.
And then also, your trail to the north is not included in the LOD.
Okay.
So you may want to take your LOD and just wrap it around that trail to the north.
Yeah, I think that trail might have been post when we got. the
Probably.
approval, so.
Yeah, that was just added.
Since you're doing a minor mod, just get the LOD adjusted appropriately as well.
While we're talking about the NPDES, could you explain, and Meredith brought this up at the last meeting, where the basins, where the stormwater collection is up on top of the hill in the the residential area, in those catch basins, and it's flowing down a pretty steep pipe down into those said ponds. Just knowing what water does and the heavy flows that are during hard storms, what size riprap do you have down there? Do you think it's adequate?
Yeah, so there is actually a spreadsheet and charts within the ENS manual that would size these based off of velocity and flow rate. So the rock, and I can't remember the rock size off the top of my head, I think it's R5, so it's pretty big stone. It's sized based on pipe size and that flow and velocity. So I'll go in, and they're approved by the Conservation District and all the plans. So those are sized appropriately for what's coming down there.
I figured you'd need it for the MPDS to have backup calcs, but I would have guessed an R8. I mean, it just, you got a lot of water.
Yeah, I think we added a couple manholes. I know it's steep coming down, but when it breaks grade, it's flat because we added another structure.
Okay.
So it's actually, should be 1% coming into the basins, just at a shorter section.
Just didn't see anything to slow down that velocity and turbulence. So,
Yeah.
but I'll believe the calculations. That's what they're for. So thank you for doing that. Meredith, are you happy with that? Or?
Sounds like it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. Okay.
And Tom's team checked it.
We reviewed it, and again, they have that, it meets the requirements of DEP criteria, so, that's what we want to have, so.
Just don't want to mess up your.
25 years, then we'll get 500.
Don't want to mess up your permeable bottom to that, because then you got more problems. So, okay, well, I'm not going to argue with the calculations. I just had to know in my own mind that was going to work. I've just seen too many times where there's steep pipes have a lot of water, just a lot of turbulent water coming out. It's a force multiplier. So, okay. Anybody else have comments? You done, Bob? Or?
That was it. Unless someone else has a comment. Then I would propose that we make a motion to recommend approval to the plan subject to some conditions. And those conditions would be Tom's standard conditions of any of these plans in terms of, HOP and the NPDS and whatever other conditions.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you follow our February 10th letter, the HOP is item number 1, the snowshoe discussion, which will go to the supervisors, 2, street names, safety fence are all identified in that letter, so I think if you reference that letter in the recommendation.
Okay, so I would reference that letter, but then I would also like to add to that, subject to the movement of the access road and creation of the swale on the southern property. Whatever language is appropriate for that, Tom. Anything else? Any other conditions?
Well, we'd like them to reconsider the solution. It's in there. Okay. It's not a condition. It's just something they should look at.
I'm not sure who would kill you, me or them. It's probably the court.
Yeah, by the way, the meetings are recorded. They're posted on YouTube, so if you have to go back and
See yourself.
anything you've said
Or not.
it's there.
So do we need to word this motion, or
I think I have it.
good enough?
Brought that up.
Okay, so I move that motion. We need a second.
I second it.
Yes, one second. Okay. All in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous.
And again, that's the preliminary.
Preliminary, correct.
Thank you.
Thanks again for your
Just
time.
a question, how soon will you come in with the final plan, or whatever the next step is for?
Well, hopefully we go through supervisors the next meeting.
Okay.
So hopefully one meeting there, or
Does it come back to this board again, or are we pretty much done now?
Preliminary
Goes to super
plan
nuts.
is done here.
Okay,
Goes to the supervisors, they'll go through the review process and either recommend approval or ask additional questions, get more information, and they'll act on that plan. And then once they're done, then they'll start start the finalized process.
When's the public meeting? Is there another public?
It'll be the March, it'll just be at the supervisors meeting, there's not a hearing or anything like that, so.
Okay.
Thanks again for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have some questions for them, based on what they were just saying here.
Okay, I'll allow
Okay. Did I hear somebody say that the basin was changed from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1?
It was
I know before it was 2 to 1 to 3 to 1, I thought today I heard somebody say it was changed back to 2 to 1.
It was not.
Okay. The whole pond fences thing, based on what I see down on SolidWorks with that monster pond down there, and it's got a 40-foot drop, people are constantly on that. I would recommend them. I know it could look gaudy, but it's for safety. It would protect the HOA. Just a thought. One thing that I thought of that wasn't discussed, that I had questioned at last month's meeting, I was just looking for clarity. So you were saying it was 105 feet from 19 to the back of the townhouse. Is that still?
That hasn't changed, no.
And does that start from the center of 19, the edge of 19? What does that begin at?
From the edge of the paving on Route 19 to the first townhome unit, it's about 105 feet.
Okay, and then, you had stated the last time too, it was gonna be, the ground was gonna be cut, and with I think it was like a 30 or 40-foot drop from 19 down to the backyard of those townhomes, is that correct still?
Yes, that did not change.
Okay, and where was that cut how far off 19 was that cut gonna start? And was that gonna be a vertical drop, or is that gonna be slope?
It's a slope.
Okay.
But if you measured this, that's roughly your 30 feet. So if you took the slope like this,
Yeah.
the 30 feet would be this distance here.
Elevation.
Yeah.
Okay, right, no, I understand that.
Right.
I mean, like, is it starting at the edge of 19 and 30 feet off of 19?
No. I don't have the distance in front of me exactly, but it's you can see the right of way. It's way back off of 19. So
it starts at the right of way, is what you're saying?
the grading does, yes, at the right.
It is what, 50 foot, correct?
That might even be wider up there. I don't know exactly.
I was thinking the D said 50 foot.
It might be wider, but I'm not sure.
And it's gonna be leveled beyond that for the sidewalk as well.
Correct.
Before your cut slope.
The right of way there is 100,
From the center?
60 feet from the center.
So, yeah, okay, so basically off that side. Okay.
Plus 10 feet for the sidewalk. Until the cut slope starts.
Okay. So you're talking probably what? 30?
From edge of pavement, you're gonna be 50 feet probably, something like that.
Yeah.
Plus or minus.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again.
Okay, thank you guys. Next on our agenda is subdivision and zoning ordinance. I'm not sure we're gonna get into that tonight. Yeah, I thought this might take a little longer than it did, but I don't believe we're really prepared, and at this point, we've gone through the saldo, except for the administrative items, and it's not really, so until we get the new draft back, I'm not sure that we're gonna have much to go over. You got something for us, Tom?
I do, we had 3 pages left of the recreational, promise, I brought you copies of that.
Why don't we stick around for that, and see if we can finish this up.
How many pages can it be? 3?
I don't remember where we stopped here at all. I don't have any of my notes.
Yeah, I didn't bring mine either.
We know where we stopped on this, because I didn't bring my notes with me.
Okay, so where we stopped was, at the bottom of page 4.
Which number are we on?
Number 7 is where we ended. Number 8 is fences. It would be.
So you're saying we're starting on
Number 8 is where, yes, is where we ended.
Okay, we're starting on paragraph 8. Anybody didn't catch that? We worked on 1 through 7, I think, at our last meeting. Made revisions to the document. Tom updated it. This is the revised 1 through 7 and the draft number 8 and beyond. Is that correct?
Okay. It's only about a page and a half or two. So
That'd be great if we could knock this out, really. Looks like 2.5 pages. We got some time tonight, so.
I see no issue with number 8 on fences.
No, good. Number 9, pitches and swales.
Rather 9 is rather innocuous too.
Ten fire rooms.
Fire rooms was one of the ones that I questioned. Because didn't we say before that we were requiring a minimum of 50 feet width? And if you demand that the fire room be 25 feet from either side, technically you can't even make that work 50 feet anyway, because the fire room's more than 0.
You're gonna have to put it underneath your camper trailer.
Well, even that, half of it's gonna be in each side, so it seems like a silly requirement. I haven't been to a campground where I've seen 25 feet off an adjacent lot. And we probably don't even want to use the word lot there, adjacent site. They're not technically lots, they're not property owners. But, so my recommendation would be, if we're gonna leave a sentence like this in, we knock that down to 10 feet or something like that, because 25 is not gonna make it work.
I would agree with 10 feet. I think that's a little more reasonable, gives it more flexibility.
And then change the word lot to site or something, campsite or whatever.
Yeah, campsite, I think would be best.
Number 11, water supply. Are we going to distinguish between primitive and non-primitive? Because if we're primitive, it's not really primitive if we've got water in 300 feet. So I question a paragraph based on that, which we won't do.
Nothing jumps out at me, Bob. Can you explain your concern with this one again for number 11?
My concern is that if you're actually having a primitive campsite somewhere, it's going to certainly be way more than 300 feet away from water.
Okay.
That's the point.
They still can easily run a water line, primitive campsites.
Well, but you don't necessarily want to. And the next half of that sentence is fire.
Yeah, I know that.
So you're not going to run a water line capable of addressing local fire department needs. In other words, you're going to put a hydrant down in there that they can tie into. At a primitive campsite, it could be a couple thousand feet into the middle of the woods or whatever. So I would think that if we want to leave something like this, we need to go and distinguish between primitive and not on the campsites.
I'm just thinking long term, I would rather have water supply down there for firefighting. All those primitive campers are gonna have campfires going, and it's in the middle of the summer and something lights up. We want a way for our firefighters to have some water, right?
Maybe.
Does it
But the other half
have to be
of that is oftentimes you can use a pond as a water source for fire.
Okay.
And a pond does not provide potable water. So I think that if they're gonna have some kind of ability for fire, and that includes, you know, recreational pond that they can suck out of to go and do the firefighting needs, that's adequate, and still doesn't get you potable water within 300 feet.
Yeah, as long as the pond has water in it, if it's a dry summer. We know that's not a guarantee always.
Well, we should probably think about whether we even want that paragraph in this section, because I feel like that's more applicable to the utilities section. And also, do we really want drinking fountains? Isn't it more like a
Yeah, I would just say.
little hose bit spigot
yeah.
situation?
Is this only for places that have RVs? Is that how I'm reading this?
Or tents?
In case of recreational land development, recreational vehicles.
That's primarily for the RVs, but I think they have a primitive tent camping area also. That'd be okay. I kind of like Meredith's idea to put 11 down into the utilities. Maybe it's already covered.
Then let's just go down through utilities first, and we'll address water as we get there, because the water piping system down below as well.
Yeah, because number 2 under D, that kind of muddles.
Where are you at?
Number 2 under D about
D.
all the lots will have adequate and improved water supply and distribution serving all lots. So that kind of defeats the purpose of the fountains.
Good fountains.
All right, can we make a decision that we're not going to require fountains?
Yeah.
I think that helps. If they want to put them in, that's fine. We should have spigots with running water, but we don't do formal fountains. So
Where are you
that's
looking at?
On 11 is fountains.
Who was up with 11?
Oh,
Where's 11? Right there it says fountains.
no, okay, yeah.
I mean, number 1 captures everything. It says, hey, whatever regs out there, you gotta provide water supply.
I don't know, I'm struggling with this section for both water and sewer, because much of the camping we do, there is not water on the site. And more than half of them, there's no sewage. And the sewage is simply handled by a dump station at the entrance to the development, which I think is perfectly adequate. I think you want to restrict, you can say they can't dump, they just can't dump wherever they feel like it. Campground has to have a dump station on it. I think that's a reasonable requirement. But to have sewage available in every lot, I don't think is a reasonable requirement.
No, that's over the top.
And even the
As far as-
water, I don't know that water is necessarily required. But I go to lots of places that are dry, and you have to take your own water in. That's just what you do. It's camping. It's the idea. So I think requiring that you do that, I think is wrong. I think that there should be, on a site like this, I do think we want to require some kind of public facilities in terms of restrooms and water in a public facility building on the site. But beyond that, I think it's going to be the type of camping.
If they decide to put in.
Yes. I don't think you want to have it that there's no public facility that has a restroom or water available at it, but you don't want to require it in every site. How that's done, I don't know.
Bob, does that, if number 1 is like a catch-all, it's like, hey, you gotta follow all the federal rules and regulations. Does that help at all?
It does, if you're gonna bring utilities in, and those utilities would meet DEP requirements, and you could take off the rest of those paragraphs to define where it is, and maybe adding a number E that says that we wanna have, public restrooms available in accommodations at a minimum of X, and I think that's solves the need we're looking.
I think I'd prefer something like that than,
So what you're saying, Tom, is like, if, I'm just throwing this number out, if there's 100 campsites, for every 100 campsites, you have to have a restroom and shower. A lot of them have showers, but does that need to be a requirement, or is that more on the developer to put showers in to get people to want to come there? Do we, I guess what I'm asking, do we want to have a minimum, not like, for every 100 campsites, and I don't know if that's the right number, it might be 50, but you need to have facilities, public facilities.
I would think you want to define somehow, you don't want to have one restroom for unlimited number of units. So I think there has to be a ratio. What the ratio is, we could look to see if there's an industry standard, but I think you'd want to just say based on whatever that standard is, you call it that. So if you're putting in 20 sites, you may have 2 restrooms, 60 sites may have 4 restrooms, whatever that case is, I think is really what you want to sort of.
does anyone know what Indian Brave, what kind of facilities they have up there? Anyone have any idea?
I don't.
Because they have about 150 sites or something like that there.
So I do have one other question. So Indian Brave, a lot of them are in there more or less permanent. Does that make a difference how some of this is set up? If it's permanent or?
Yeah, that was kind of my question I was getting to. I think, is it a possibility to divide this into primitive and non-primitive? I know when I go camping, a lot of the times, I don't have anything. I have clean water, I got black water tank, gray water, I shower, I hook up nothing. And I want to have that option, whereas we should probably also distinguish, like he's bringing up, that with my Indian Brave, if it's a non-primitive, then maybe make some standards. Or like that. Indian Brave does have water, and they have swimming pool, and they have clubhouse.
Do you know how big the clubhouse is, restrooms and all that, or not?
Man, no, I go through all these good options out there, but it's pretty packed. There's a lot of people in there. You go there at night on Saturday night, it's jamming. So, yeah, I'm sure their sewage facilities or it's not like that.
So I do have a question then on the restrooms. Are they more outhouses, or would they be, where they have to be cleaned out periodically, or would it have to be hooked into a sewage system? Or,
Looks like they have 2 bathrooms.
just 2 bathrooms?
Two buildings.
Two building bathrooms and a rec hall, so we call it that.
Do they have showers?
That I don't know. I'm just looking at their. I'm guessing one of them does. Just looking at their map, it's a terrible quality map, but I just see 2 bathroom icons on and a rec hall.
There's a Pennsylvania Code, Chapter 19, covers organized camps and campgrounds, general provisions. And it lists a whole bunch of requirements for obtaining permits for water and sewage. So it's really a state mandate thing.
Yeah,
I haven't read the whole thing. I don't know if it covers what we want, but I would think the state has public health when they wrote those statutes. It should govern our campsites.
Because when I look at Indian Brave versus Cooper's Lake,
Yeah.
I don't want to see Cooper's Lake. Sorry. I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be, 100 porta-johns when the facility's being used. I do think we want higher standards than that, but I don't think you necessarily need to require a sewer tap at every lot. So,
Yeah, I agree with that.
you can have a dump station, something to address yours. Indian Brave, a lot of those are almost year-round, or maybe they are year-round. Anyone that's gonna go into a place and stay year-round is most likely hooking up, because they're not gonna haul their machine, their rig out every week and go and dump and fill with water. They're just gonna pick a different site, if that's the case.
I forget.
And that's the kind of campground, it's whatever kind of campground is people are building.
At the last meeting, did we talk about how many, like percentages of how many could be permanent versus transient? Did we cover that?
I remember a discussion about
Density.
pulling them out,
Yeah, they could only
having them leave them out at some amount so they're not
Right.
permanent.
Same, I guess, maybe with primitive,
What's that?
like, ones that, like, I don't know, we should probably read the code.
It's pretty detailed. Talks about toilet rooms, number of trailer spaces, and number of toilets you need. You know, it has all that distinction.
Yeah, we did not go over percentages or numbers like that from the start of the process.
Do we fix the definition on recreational? That's all fixed.
Well, I think for starters, I'd like to see at least, they have to have public facilities, at least one in their campsite. They have
Well,
to have,
apparently they do from what Matt said.
they have to have at least an option for a dump station or public sanitation.
It covers swimming, bathing, rodents, it covers everything.
Is that an ordinance or what is that?
Yeah, it's chapter 19, organized camps and campgrounds, general provisions.
This would be the code, and then they dive down into bathing places, which then is covered by the public bathing law. So you look at what that says.
So the pond, Cooper's Lake doesn't count for public bathing.
Probably
Unless it
not.
was created prior to that. Code.
So I think a lot of this text is the contents in the regulation, the state reg.
So it sounds to me like we should get a copy, or we should get a pointer to this code and we should review
Well,
it and
that's-
discuss it.
But, go ahead, Mike.
Just one more question. I'm wondering, this is our, in our current ordinances? It's not, I mean, does anybody know where this came from? The reason I ask is if you look at item, the very last item, I3, it says when it's part of this, it says where the sewer line with mobile home parks are not connected to a public sewer. It's almost like this was taken from, somebody took a mobile home park and changed it to recreational. Is it possible?
Where
We have
is it
something
at?
from
It's not very last.
It's very last.
I think Sylvia got this.
It's almost like this came out, somebody took a mobile home park,
From Sylvia or from you?
changed it.
It was an example from another township that they had created for recreational park. So there is a section in the ordinance now that covers that, and this would replace all of that section.
I think that's why I was asking about the definition. Didn't we take mobile
We
homes
did,
out?
those would be moved into the appropriate section of the definition.
So if we look at what Matt is looking at, is there a way that we can just reference the Pennsylvania ordinance, the township follows the Pennsylvania ordinance?
Well, you could reference chapter 19 of the PA code for those requirements, and then I guess what we want to look at is, are there specific requirements that in that code that define it better? Like bathing places, we look at that code reference, and in that, does it say for how many units? And again, if it's already a standard, then you're okay with that standard, there's no sense in reinventing it, so.
Pretty. But if there's something we want above that standard, we can add that in, correct?
They make a distinction between a campground and an organized camp.
What the heck is that?
I don't know if that's primitive versus not primitive. Organized camp is when you combine a whole bunch of facilities for the purpose of providing an outdoor group living experience.
Boy Scouts or Boy Scout Jamboree or something.
Could be. That could be.
It seems pretty comprehensive, at least from a law. You know. I don't know if we have to incorporate it into our.
We could again reference that, and what I can do is send everybody those sections of the code so you have those.
Is there, in this?
Yeah, why don't we do that? And we'll dig through that.
Now, the file I'm reading is from September '96, so you have to. I'm under the wrong. And you know how AI plays in our head.
That's all under utilities, that whole section. Okay.
It was, okay.
I don't see required water mains and things. That shouldn't be in there.
My preference would be there's a minimum standard they have to meet. If they want to expand electricity, they got to meet the NEC code. If they want to expand water or sewage, they've got to meet all the codes that are currently in place for everything up there.
When does it become a residential? Like, what if you camp there for 5 years?
I think that's the permanent residence thing.
But if
there
they're
for
on
s-
wheels,
for so long.
if they keep the wheels on them, then it is not permanent. And that's what they do.
Yeah.
Like you've got those the RVs or the they sell them as permanent structures.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you keep the wheels on, you keep the axles on, it's one or the other. But if you keep them on, it's the same as, like, on the farm, I can build a shed. If I put it on skids, it can be moved, it's not a permanent structure, and it changes a lot of things. And I think with campgrounds, those permanent, and you go up 19, or up 79, and one up at Slippery Rock, I think at least half of them or more are permanent campsites.
So we don't want to camp.
But it is one or the other. You either got to keep the axles on or you got to keep the tires on. But it's not permanent. You may keep it there 10 years, but you can hook into it anytime. And
They technically have to pay the registration on it too.
yeah, okay. That come on.
You generally have to keep the regs on.
Okay.
Generally rules, you know?
Okay. I wonder how many.
Yeah, I say we just go through and look at the actual code and just reference it and address that next time. It shouldn't take us that long to add in what we want to add.
Right.
So it's pretty comprehensive, just looking through it.
Add in anything we want
Yeah.
above and beyond what they're
Yeah.
requiring.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Well, we got through, 2 paragraphs tonight?
And I think the other thing we talked about the last time was about the camp store and where that fell in the spectrum, because it's all parking spaces.
The convenience store, yeah, we did talk about that. We were having extra parking spaces up that weren't included in the campsites themselves. How many we needed, how many auxiliary spaces. But that's all been cranked into the previous parts of this that we skipped through, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, when something like that is permitted, that's a commercial structure, right? And it would have to adhere to commercial building code, including ADA requirements, any accessibility requirements, all that.
They pay taxes, right?
So a question on something a little bit different than this. Something that's becoming very popular now. I got a farm. You open up to where it's pretty much primitive, but they can come in, park for the night or 2 nights or whatever. So how's that fall into this? And I'm assuming that would have to be permitted through the township?
And that's ultimately what we brought up, is that is the latest thing. And
It is.
And whether you want to allow that or have a permit for it to see that it exists, so if somebody has an issue, somebody has record of who was there, or, you know, in case you go after somebody and say, okay, somebody paid for these sites and just sort of false names or anything else, but at least you have something to follow.
I mean, to be honest, I looked at it, it's nothing I really want to do, but
But
it's a very, it could happen in the township.
We're gonna have
Especially-
Woodstock.
Huh?
We're gonna have
Yeah.
Woodstock.
So at what number of sites then does your farm become a campground?
Okay,
That's
there's a good
requirement.
question.
Is it 5 sites, is it 10 sites, is it, less than 10, you don't need a public restroom facility? If it's, I don't know.
Once a farm, always a farm.
I mean, the way they advertise, like on Facebook and that, you don't have to have any facility. It's basically a parking spot is what you have for them.
It is, and people love it, because you can have 2 RVs going in and they just park for the weekend and.
Save some money.
So we'll just bring up some extra trivia for you. There's actually kind of like 2 levels to it, and we've done one of them so far. It's called purpose host, and that's what the log cabin participates in, which is anybody can just come, park for the night. The expectation is you'll give them at least $20 worth of business the next morning or next day or something along those lines. There's also a new one, a newer system. It's called Hip Camp, that is more like an Airbnb for campsites. So for instance, our farm, we set up electrical boxes to make it available so that someone that's just looking for a 1 night, 2 night stay, wants to go to McConnell's Mill or whatever, they just want to plug in for the night so they can run their AC, they could come to us, pay $20 for the night, whatever, and then go on their way. So I was going to ask in the following comments, kind of where do you draw the line between like what is RLD versus what's a family residential thing that allows their family? Because we had my parents and sister-in-laws and whatever family, we had 4 campers set up in our yard. They were all plugged in and having a good time. Nobody was being charged anything. Is that going to have to now build a restroom with 2 toilets per sex and public water for everybody and whatever? Like, where's the line drawn? So, Hip Camp and Harvest Host are the 2 things I mainly want to bring up to you guys.
It's like, it's good points, because there should be a line drawn.
Right.
Because I don't think you need to have a public restroom facility that meets ADA requirements and commercial building code. I don't think that's a reasonable requirement. Right up on 528 towards Prospect, we did the same thing when the gas drilling was big. This farm just went and put in, half dozen or a dozen electric hookups. And people would just come and park there while they're working on the rigs. Same kind of deal. I mean, it's a different beast than a campground.
Yeah, we should address that. I mean, to me, it's all about protecting the neighbors more than restricting the people who want to do it. I think that's where I'm looking at it from.
I think that's.
So are you guys, do you have people like?
We don't yet, but that was part of our, we were doing the electric hookups. We have 3 like permanent boxes installed right now for RV hookups. That was mainly for my family when they were coming out there and if they come in the future. But if we wanted to do the Hip Camp thing, we were thinking about doing that in the future. We want to regrade our driveway a little bit to make it a little bit easier. We used it as a test run. My family was like, we can't put our camper here, we have to aim it this way. And it's like, noted, we'll fix that before we open up the Hip Camp. But
the log cabin is currently open.
Really?
They're on Harvest.
they're on Harvest Host, yeah. So when you see a camper over there.
Yeah, I see them there all the
They're
time.
there like almost everywhere.
Yeah, so the expectation is they're limited to 1 night generally.
And
No
each
hookups.
Harvest Host can limit the amount, like they probably have limit of 1 RV per night, so they probably have a reservation system.
They got electric hookup for them?
No, the thing with Harvest Host, you have to.
It's just park, you just park there.
Doesn't Walmart allow that?
They
Yeah,
used to.
Walmarts are just generally accepted since they're open 24/7.
Does it become a recreational?
Go ahead, Mike. I just want to add, I didn't agree with this. It's really B2B stuff is huge. Now, the downside is, I know people that have done it and they run into issues where people won't pay. So it's, now you have, so I think you seriously should consider a separate section. I don't know where that falls under, to be honest with you.
Zoning.
But it is a known issue and it's happening local. I mean, there's people that are literally having people come in, pay for 2 nights, they stay for a month and they can't get rid of it. And then they get down, we're using police facilities, then we're using EMS, because somebody's in there and they got a Narcan on it. It's just something to think about. I mean, it's happening in the area now. Well, perfect example, now there's, I'm sure it's not like that.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you, it is an issue, and I know people are doing it. And I'm a primitive fan. I like a primitive shower. I don't need hookups and have a generator, But anyway, just something.
I would also comment that since your definition of the top does include things like cottages and cabins, this would also kind of go on to like Airbnbs. We've been to a number of Airbnbs where they set up a small home or basically reappropriated a shed as an Airbnb. That's a cabin, that's a yurt, whatever you want to call it. Those sorts of things would fall into this too. Is that a campground or is that someone with a tiny home in their backyard? Where do you draw the line?
I think undevelopable has zoning on that.
Yeah, I think they do. I don't think they allow Airbnbs.
Yeah, they don't allow Airbnbs.
They don't?
None
They-
at all.
I thought they had a couple every time.
But you can't, I don't think you can take your own home and
Trying
rent
to
it
get
out.
my in-laws dinner.
So if you do an Airbnb in Zealand, you have to do a separate building, does it?
I think it has to be a dedicated. I'm not sure, but I heard someone was trying to sell their house and they couldn't sell it. They didn't want it anymore because they couldn't use it as an Airbnb.
Wow.
We have,
Cause I thought you drive down a couple of the streets and it says.
That's pretty
Airbnb.
severe. Zoning.
we're working on short-term rentals, I guess, in the zoning ordinance, and that's where all those Airbnbs and VRBOs, all
There's
those
gonna be
things.
some overlap there.
Yeah, you might want to add a section.
Yeah, since you have cottages, cabins, and whatever in the definition, keep that sort of thing in mind.
Yeah, those were the campgrounds that have, 5 cottages they rent out.
What do they call it? Hip
Hip
camps?
Hip camp is the Airbnb.
Like hippie.
The ones that won't leave.
When we told our neighbors we might do hip camp, that's exactly what they pictured. They're like, no. Not a hippie commune.
We should add that in as another zoning ordinance we'll look at, is how do we regulate these? I'm not against them. I think my primary concern is protecting the neighbors who live adjacent to, number one. Number two, just kind of having some way to, evict, or, how do we take care of the police who may have to be involved? Let's hope it doesn't come to that, but we have to have provisions just in case. Protecting the neighbors is the big one for me. And if you're building a new building, you've got to have buffer zones and everything else. You can't just pull up five crazy hip RVs.
Would that be considered a building modification, Tom? Like say if I wanted to add a shed, I'd have to apply for a permit with them.
You get a zoning permit at a minimum, depending on the size.
Because I would imagine that if you're just redeveloping an area, putting electric boxes and stuff, it may require a permit. I'm not saying you need to get a permit.
I don't think I've heard of it.
But, maybe that's the angle you go on. It's a facility modification of your property.
Yeah, it's all gonna be in zoning, and then have to have the right zoning, right? So limit the.
If you're in a farm, then you got a subzone inside a farm.
Okay.
Carry on with your family.
Yeah,
Let's go the other way.
until we get there, your grandfather.
How do we address that?
We've got to add it in. Tom, can you find something for us?
So to me, I think because you have this recreational, I think you would add it in here to define that these aren't recreational, they're minimum standards, so it's the place you would go to look to see what the standard is. So I think you would add those in, we could potentially add in the house camps and hip camps and put those terminologies in. But this would be the place I think to start in the zoning to say where you can and can't do it, or restrictions, so.
All right.
They're making money.
Can you try to find anything if they exist?
Yes, I will pull that stuff together and I'll have it.
Okay, great. Just give us a chance to look at it. All right, I hear a motion to keep going or call it out.
Add one more public comment if you're open to it.
Oh, yes, sure. We're gonna get to that, yes.
Okay. Public comment for the same stuff while you're on it. Like he was talking about, I've totally been to a number of campgrounds that are like, basically, there's a requirement that you're self-contained. There's no expectation for any hookups. Like you can take your RV there and do the thing. Usually they'll have a dump station available, but that's kind of the bare minimum. Put a dump station and fill station. But I would say if you're allowing that sort of direction and kind of allowing some of that, might be in your best interest to, as a protection of the neighbors, also put in some quiet hours guidelines for generator runtime. Because I've been in campgrounds that allow generators 24/7. I've been at ones that have it cut off at 7 p.m. It's a different realm, but it's something to think about.
I think there's a sound ordinance in the township.
I know it's in
Most
generators.
it would be better to have it defined.
Yeah. Generators are really loud.
Yeah.
Some are,
So-
very loud.
And things are moving towards batteries and inverters nowadays, so it's not going to be a huge deal down the line, but right now they do still exist quite prominently. That's all.
Good comments, thank you. Anybody else, public comments? Mike?
I was gonna say something, but go ahead.
Ladies first, go ahead.
I know you guys are working on this, but I think the higher priority needs to be guys sending crypto mining and all that kind of stuff. above all this RV stuff right now. You know, you're talking the amount of electric food use, the millions of gallons of water a day, that kind of stuff. The noise, the shaking of the ground, all that kind of stuff together needs to be looked at real quick.
At least
It's
get,
moving up quickly through the Beaver Valley.
I mean, when we've talked about it, we were limited to the industrial zoning area. There's not a whole lot down there. They would need a lot of power and water and facilities that aren't there right now.
But I haven't seen an ordinance on it yet.
Correct.
We need to get that done.
You get a lot more than that.
Yeah, oh yeah, I understand that, but that one there is one that's a plot that I think above some of these other ones.
Did
Okay.
you have an example?
I do have an example, I'll bring it, I'll email it and bring it.
I have a few too, somewhere.
Solar farm?
Solar farm we already have covered.
We did that.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Mike?
Okay, couple things. One, I don't know if anybody's aware, probably not yet, it will be advertised, but the board of supervisors are having a workshop starting the second Monday. This coming Monday, it will be the second Monday of the month at 6:30.
Wait a minute, when?
Second
Monday.
Second Monday, what?
We're the first Monday.
Yeah, this is the second, next month.
Okay. Next week will be the first Monday.
So it'll be the 9th.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
You haven't actually.
Well, they already published.
March 9th.
Well, just make sure it doesn't be the first Monday.
Anyway, the idea behind these workshops are for you guys to provide feedback just like this. We do have some priorities we want to go over. This is one of the things on the list, data center ordinance. Tommy, if you could provide anything on that, that would be fantastic. We have some samples to go over, but I know you guys spend enough time donating time to the township, but if you would like to come to the meeting, give your insights on things you think would improve, I'd love to hear your input. So,
Out of curiosity, like what would you work on versus what we're working on?
So, a lot, like Bob said, there's a lot of ordinances that we need to get done. So, there's a bunch of things we talked in the last supervisors meeting. One of the deals is have the budget explained a little more in detail. So it's not necessarily plan commission related, but a lot of it probably would be. Just kind of throwing it out there as an offer. But one of the things is how the budget's broken down, how we can look at things in more detail. We're going to be doing a manager's ordinance. We're going to be talking about data center ordinances. There's a whole list of things, but we'll put it on an agenda. And it's the workshop / meeting is the idea behind it. So if we have to vote, we can, but.
So you guys are gonna get together and come up with more work for us, is that?
I mean, that's what it sounds like.
So here's the problem. We're not legally allowed to meet and deliberate on it.
Okay.
There's a lot of changes that need to be made in the township. So the idea was to have a workshop where we can sit and talk in public about our ideas. Because if we do it behind closed doors, it doesn't fall in line with the Sunshine Act.
Well, a lot of municipalities do this, it's more of the talking, then the voting meetings are typically shorter, because we've already discussed everything. Are you gonna want your solicitor at the workshop meeting? I
We
happen to
haven't
have a
discussed
meeting,
that yet.
I
Quite
happen to have a
honestly.
meeting the second Monday of the month.
Okay, well, things are going really fast right now, and, but we haven't even talked about that, like Rich said yet. He didn't realize we agreed on a thing, I thought it was transmitted to him, but it wasn't, so.
Hopefully he's.
Yeah, so the concept is good. We used to have in the township, we used to have working meetings where we would simply be able to sit down and address future topics that everybody could be engaged in and hear what's going on. So conceptually, there are a bunch of topics we want to discuss. The first, as Mike said, is simply to, especially with the new manager, on a foresight. We want to go through the budget and go through the line items so that everything's on the same page as to what each item is and where the money's going. So it's topics like that, mostly educational, but there will be some things that we can professionally vote on. So it's a work in progress, and we can discuss the dates, but we'll keep them updated, and hopefully it's positive with the township.
I think it's a great idea. I know, I've always felt locked in by the agenda and our monthly meetings. You can't go and look, you can't brainstorm and come up with the things you need to fix because you're focused on things that are right in front of you. and having that extra time to get people can talk in a round table instead of this, to an audience. I think that's really the format of that, and I think you guys will get a lot done and come up with better ideas and better ways to move this township forward. And what comes out of that goes to the zoning board, or goes to the planning commission, or goes to our engineer, or maybe we may need some help. I mean, we're the little engine that could here, but if there's bigger things, we may have to hire some outside help to at least get us solid drafts before we look at them. We'd love to do it ourselves, but I know we're pushing as much as we can and we don't get real far. So.
Well, basically, planning commission is essentially responsible for SALDO and zoning and the sub-ordinances that fit into that bucket. There's plenty of other things too. So I think that we need to make sure that, there's open communication between all of us as well, so that we know, okay, which ones fall in your realm, which ones should we be addressing as sub-entities of our stuff, et cetera.
And that's one of the other changes we're instituting, is there are a bunch of different subsections in the township, these your terms. There's the road crew, the police, administration, planning commission, parks committee. So we are assigning each of the supervisors to each one of those organizations. Each organization will have a supervisor that they can reach out to. That supervisor will consolidate the information and bring it back to report to the board as a whole, so that we're all better informed and we're able to make decisions a little bit more efficiently.
And there's another side to that too, what I mentioned earlier, is because we're a 3-member board, 2 of us is a quorum. So any 2 of us, like right now, technically we're here, if we were talking like this in public and deliberating about the township, this would have to be an executive session, or it would be not illegal. So we have to be very careful. You're not under those restrictions like we are. So that's the other reason for having this open forum. So we've got a lot of ideas, but we can't go and sit in the office and say, deliberate about them outside of the public meetings. Not legally, anyway.
Another thing I'll just put on the table is, we've had several committees, I've been on several committees, and that's a great way to pull township folks who are very interested and passionate about certain things. Have a recreational vehicle committee that comes back and makes recommendations on what they'd like to see us do. So, that's a great way to start things, at least. We have a lot of people that come to these meetings, especially supervisor meetings. They seem to care what happens here. So we can recruit them to, at least make recommendations to the board, which then you can move over to the planning commission. It's a place to start.
Last thing I wanted to add is Bob touched on it a little bit. He says you guys are responsible for the SALDO and the ordinances, but you're also responsible for making recommendations to the board of supervisors, which I know you're aware of. I just encourage you, at least I can't speak for the other supervisors, but I can speak for myself. If you have recommendations outside of what you recommend, don't hesitate to do it. You guys are the recommending board. If you see something that it may not be recommended, put it down in the recommendations. It'll come before the board of supervisors. We can speak. That's at least my personal feeling. So I'd be glad to. If there's something you're concerned about, maybe it's not on topic necessarily, but make a recommendation. Glad to hear it.
And I'm acting over the police department as well as the planning commission. So I'll send Dave my contact information. Dave can share with everybody. And anything you want to reach out about, I've been touching base with Dave periodically as we think share the information that should get passed on to the supervisors so we all stay on the same page. And if there are any new ideas, pass them on to the township as well. We're trying to build a better business up in the township. And, this is our first effort. It may not be perfect, but we'll learn as we go.
Okay. Any other public comments? We'll close the meeting now.
I found a typo in a section you already passed if you want to know it. Section C3, third sentence. You say the density shall not exceed a total of 57 sites per acre. 57 is a 5, it's a 7, I don't know. see it through its third sentence.
Thank you.
We did catch that last time.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay. I missed that one.
And one last comment. Thank you guys for all the time and effort you put into this. I watched the detail and the camaraderie and input and give and take. I know how much progress you guys have made. And I'm grateful that I know I can speak for the township. Thank you.
Yeah, we got a great team here, really, so.
Yeah, it's nice to be here and see.
Could be around high IQ people. Right, Bob?
Ooh. I didn't understand.
It's good to be around high IQ.
All right.
I move into the meeting's adjourned.
My second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.